Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. And you know what? Barbie and Oppenheimer have basically been the same movie all along.
What?
And I don't just mean similar plots. Every movie has a similar story. But these two films also have a single uniting theme that speaks to where we are in the world today. And I think that each movie has one very similar scene that beautifully expresses how these are two sides of the same coin. So I'm going to go over all the similarities and then explain these two scenes and tell you what it all means for us in our modern day lives. Now, these two movies will be forever joined at the hip. It was just a coincidence that they happened to release on the same day, and they both had built-in somewhat opposite fan bases. You had a generation of women and girls who play with Barbies, and also the Nolan bros, my people. The memes exploded. You were there. It was a great time. So let me walk you through these many similarities. On the surface, both movies are about real-world American creations, the Barbie doll and the atomic bomb. But on a deeper level, each film is about the power of ideas, the power to destroy and the power to bring peace.
Teaching something no one here has dreamt of. But once people start hearing what you can do with it,
there's no going back.
The films are also about death, reincarnation, and reinventing the world, and each was created by a writer-director-auteur who was allowed to execute their singular vision based on the works of others. They used mostly practical effects to achieve their unique visual styles, and the movies feature breaks in reality to express heightened emotion. For instance, there's the dream ballet in Barbie and the sex scene in the interrogation room. Each movie begins with a flashback to the main character's origin before snapping forward to the present day. This protagonist lives in an idyllic community that they have shaped, Barbie Land and Los Alamos. Each of these places becomes corrupted. The beauty of Los Alamos is marred by an atomic explosion, while Barbie Land becomes the kingdom. And the hero is very much at the center of this community.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Both heroes are believers in political revolution and attend large parties with their peers. The protagonists begin the movie in a secluded community, Barbie Land and the world of academia for Oppenheimer, and each of them are haunted by thoughts of death.
Do you guys ever think about dying?
They each come to see their world in a way that their community cannot. Barbie starts to think of death and has flat feet, while Oppenheimer is obsessed with quantum theory.
I hear you want to start a school of quantum theory.
These visions keep them from fully fitting in with their peers, and this restlessness causes them to go off on a journey. There is also a mentally unstable woman who changes the hero's way of thinking, and this person eventually elicits the movie's defining speech, America Ferrera's monologue on womanhood, and Oppenheimer's quoting of the Bhagavad Gita. They meet an outsider from their community who pushes them on the path toward adventure. Each hero begins a journey to improve themselves. Oppenheimer visits Europe while Barbie enters the real world. This journey also introduces them to many of the people who will help them in the third act of the film. This journey also creates an idea that will soon be released, the beginning of the atomic reaction, and Ken bringing the patriarchy to Barbie Land.
These Mojo Dojo Casa houses are literally flying off the shelf.
Each hero has an antagonist who is haunted by their own inadequacy, who wants to steal the spotlight from the hero. This villain is jealous of the hero and their standing in the community. Just as Barbie ignored Ken,
We failed them.
No, you failed me!
Oppenheimer is dismissive of straws.
I'd say isotopes are less useful than electronic components, but more useful than a sandwich.
This villain eventually turns the establishment against the hero. Each movie also features authority figures in suits who primarily stay in a single room, and these authorities want to limit the thoughts of the protagonist. The committee wants to stifle Oppenheimer's left-wing leanings, while the Mattel executives want Barbie to
Get into that giant box.
The hero's idyllic world is soon overrun by the political forces that oppose them, the McCarthy-era politicians and the kingdom. But the hero ultimately wins by turning the establishment against the villain, just one person at a time.
He turned the scientists against me one by one.
What happened? One minute I was president, and then the next I was cutting a Ken steak for him?
Welcome back, Madam President.
And the lasting message of each film is that individuals are outlived by their ideas.
Ideas live forever.
And one day, pat you on the back, tell you all is forgiven. Just remember, it won't be for you. It will be for them.
So those are all of the surface level similarities, and I'm sure I'm not the first guy on YouTube to notice them. So now let's talk about the one similar scene in each movie that perfectly expresses each film's united themes. So in Barbie, this is the scene where Barbie cries on the bench. But why is that so significant, and what does this have to do with Oppenheimer? Well, first, let me set the stage. At this point in the movie, Barbie has started having flat feet and cellulite and thoughts of death.
Good night, Barbies. I'm definitely not thinking about death anymore.
Weird Barbie has told her that it's because a girl in the real world is having these thoughts, and this girl is expressing them as she plays with her Barbie. This establishes like a direct conduit. What people do in the real world affects Barbie Land. And we also learn in the opening sequence that this connection goes both ways.
Because Barbie can be anything, women can be anything.
Barbie thinks she'll just enter the real world and find this girl immediately, but instead she and Ken meet up against real world problems like capitalism and sexism.
Love me a leotard.
I love the elbow pads.
So Barbie tells Ken to go away so she can think. Ken goes off to learn about the patriarchy.
You guys are clearly not doing patriarchy very well.
Now notice this is a disco remix of Thus Spake Zarathustra, the theme of 2001: A Space Odyssey. That sequence was recreated in Barbie's opening sequence to show how the dolls eventually evolved into Barbies, which in the real world symbolized a breakthrough for little girls, learning that they could grow up to be more than just moms. Ken has his own breakthrough, learning that in this world, Kens are not accessories. But it's a remix of the 2001 theme because this is an inverse of that beginning Barbie scene. And, like the Kendom, it takes something perfect, the original theme, and adds a lot of accessories that alter the original work just enough to make it something different, unoriginal, and ultimately fake, just like disco.
What?
Now, I bring up the Ken scene because Barbie's scene on the bench is also a moment of self-discovery. But while Ken is learning about the value of material possessions, trucks, horses, and fur coats, Barbie has a moment of self-discovery. In this scene, she learns to truly connect with others. Remember, up until now, Barbie has never had to connect with anyone else. Her entire life was composed of stock greetings to people who were just like her.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Barbie.
She lived a superficial life in that she never really had to think things through.
I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
In many ways, Barbie was like the little girls who played with her. But then, Barbie starts to develop adult problems, fat feet and cellulite. And so now, the movie is about her growing up. So let's look at this scene. She's trying to find the little girl who needs her. The music is slowly tuned out, and then we can hear like a simple piano and string theme. Fitting, since Barbie is now seeking a basic human connection. We see flashes of a mother and her daughter, which is hinting at the movie's ongoing theme of Barbie representing this passage of womanhood. The opening sequence tells us that Barbies were a way for little girls to learn that they didn't just have to be moms. And later we learn that Barbie, in a way, has a mom. Ruth Handler, Barbie's creator, named Barbie after her own daughter.
We mothers stand still so our daughters can look back to see how far they've come.
This is also reminding us of the tradition of Barbies. It's the toy that every mother passes down to her daughter. Barbie sees this little girl's happiest memories, time with her mother, eating ice cream, and playing with her Barbie. Now, of course, Barbie misunderstands these visions. She expects to connect to the daughter, but she's actually connecting to the mother, in the same way that as a little girl becomes a teenager, she starts to feel more of a connection to the adults in her life. And then the montage turns sad. The little girl's upset. She grows up, becomes a teenager, and sends her Barbies to Goodwill. It's easy for Barbie and us to interpret this as a teenage girl longing for her recently lost childhood. But this is actually about a mother who is pining for her daughter's childhood. A woman who for years has defined her purpose through her child. And now that that child is growing up, she's longing for the simple days of her own youth and for her daughter's youth. The camera continues to push in on Barbie as she sees the girl shying away from her mom's affections and going to school, where, as we learn in a little bit, she is more interested in playing with people's emotions than she is with toys.
Oh, I am powerful. And until you showed up here and declared yourself Barbie, I hadn't thought about you in years, you fascist.
And then Barbie opens her eyes and a single tear rolls down her cheek.
That felt achy. Good.
Barbie has just made her first true emotional connection. Now, it was the mother instead of the child because Barbie herself is starting to mature and grow up. Then she is able to observe the world around her honestly and no longer sees the world as a child. Instead of seeing her own needs first, she can now empathize with how others feel. She looks around the park and observes a series of people that represent the lifespan of human existence. There's a mother walking with her children, symbolic of how Barbie began as a doll for children created by her mother, Ruth Handler. And then she sees a couple fighting, but more specifically, she sees this woman being yelled at by a man. Just as when you start to grow up, especially as a teenager, you struggle to make connections and understand other people. You learn that grown-up life and relationships are hard. Next, we see a little girl slowly climbing these steps on the playground, and the camera does something interesting. It tilts upward to the trees, showing us how Barbie is looking past the point of view of a child and is now seeing the wider, bigger world for the first time. She's seeing that the little girl and herself have room to grow. She sees real trees, not the plastic trees of Barbie Land, and she learns how big the world truly is, or how big the world can be if you choose to see it that way. Next, we see a couple laughing together, showing how relationships continue to grow and work as we grow older and mature. Barbie, now empathetic, laughs with them. but she also sees depression and sorrow, and she feels this emotion too. And finally, her eye catches this elderly woman beside her, as she has just seen the life cycle of the human race, and she is captivated by this woman. There are no elderly people in Barbie Land, and she is truly seeing humanity for the first time. Not just a representation of humanity, but humanity as we truly are. She is captivated by this woman.
You're so beautiful.
And the woman's response,
I know it.
is just beautiful. Barbie isn't just talking about physical beauty here, but also inner beauty. She's talking about the beauty of life, of aging, of wisdom. She's seeing a woman who has lived through everything that she just witnessed and recognizes the beauty of humanity. They laugh together, another empathetic connection that, well, frankly ties together the entire human race. Barbie has just taken her first step in her true journey. The movie was never about her leaving Barbie Land, it's about her becoming a woman. And the first step to maturity is truly seeing the world around you. And that's exactly what happens in this scene's counterpart in Oppenheimer. Now, like Barbie, this movie initially sells us on a false premise. The movie is not about Oppenheimer building the bomb. It's about what happens after he builds the bomb. What kind of world has he created? What role will he find for himself in this post-atomic age? Now, the movie has a clear before and after. You can even see it in the timeline of the movie here in the Final Cut Pro. The bomb detonation is so silent for so long that you can see a clear mark of the film's before and after. Oppenheimer was a physicist who was always better at theory than lab work.
Useless in the lab.
Now, this applies in his earlier career, but also in the making of the atomic bomb. He had theories of what the bomb's implications would be on the global scale. He thought that it would make the world safer.
Our work here will ensure a peace mankind has never seen.
But he could little understand the real-world implications of atomic warfare, or how creating atomic warfare would change him. After the detonation, Oppenheimer remains a power player, taking meetings in Washington, discussing possible targets.
Military targets. But there aren't any big enough.
But when the bombs are shipped off, he's treated like an empty nest parent who just sent their only child off to college.
But you'll keep me informed. Of course. As best I can.
Much like America Ferrera's character in Barbie. That is correct. So now Oppenheimer, like Barbie, has to reckon with what his new place is in the world. Just as the ideas of Barbie Land filter out into the real world and vice versa, the ideas that began here in Los Alamos are now going to be unleashed upon planet Earth. So now, what else could Oppenheimer possibly do to bring his life meaning? Immediately after Groves calls him to tell him about the bomb, we see the staff at Los Alamos celebrating outside. Oppenheimer seems to not even know what to think here. Remember, in the scenes leading up to this moment, the other scientists were unsure if they should even continue their work.
It's no longer the enemy who are the greatest threat to mankind. It's our work.
They only built the bomb to stop the Germans, but now that Germany was out of the war, they weren't sure it should be used against the Japanese. Oppenheimer insists that they are still saving lives.
They won't fear it until they understand it, and they won't understand it until they've used it. Our work here will ensure a peace mankind has never seen.
This is a theoretical justification that, as he's about to see, is hard to stand up against the real-world applications of the atomic bomb. So next, he addresses a victory rally to celebrate their work. It's held in a small gymnasium, symbolizing how the United States has just won its game, and the event actually has a pep rally kind of feel. Now, we've actually seen snippets of this scene before. Anytime in the present day when Oppenheimer thinks about the bomb, he flashes back to this scene when they discuss the H-bomb. When he imagines a rocket with nuclear capability. And even when they drive away with the bombs, he hears applause. So remember, Oppenheimer was primarily a theorist, so he specialized in theorizing what the bomb's detonation would do to people. He understood that people would be burned alive and that they would be reduced to ash and suffer from radiation poisoning. But he understood this in an abstract. Now that the bombs have actually been dropped on Hiroshima
And Nagasaki.
he is starting to grapple with what he has done. And this moment of realization happens at this pep rally. This is when Robert not only fully grasps what he has unleashed, but it's when he embraces his new role in the world post-bomb. So let's look at this scene. We see people cheering, again, like a pep rally. They even chant his name. power! And they're waving American flags. Now, this immediately is dangerous. Atomic power is nothing that we should celebrate or treat like a sporting event. The use of an atomic bomb is a tragedy, and it should be greeted with nothing but sober contemplation. But instead, we're celebrating its detonation like we just won the Olympics. Or, more specifically, like we're just getting fired up for the big game against the Russians. This is indicating to Oppenheimer that the atomic bombs will be used as tools for nationalism. Instead of uniting the world, these bombs will create paranoia that will divide the world. Backstage, Robert is nervous. He's not excited. It's like he hasn't yet decided how he's going to react to this occasion. Is he happy the war is over? Yes. Is he sorry he made the bomb? Well, that's the question the movie is trying to answer in this scene. The people begin to pound the bleachers, again, like a sporting event. And the way Oppenheimer enters the scene is like a classic shot of an athlete running out of the tunnel to enter the big game, because essentially that's what atomic warfare has become, a game between nuclear powers. The rumbling of the bleachers also mimics the rumbling of the bomb. People pass around bottles of liquor. This is a party. We are celebrating. When they see Oppenheimer, they cheer, and American flags enter the frame. Again, we are seeing the bomb being celebrated as a token of nationalism. The construction of this weapon is being hailed as an extension of American exceptionalism. Notice how Nolan films this with a long lens to keep Oppenheimer in focus and the crowd out of focus, until Oppenheimer exits the frame and we slowly see the faces of the crowd. This is a subtle indication that Oppenheimer, the man, is about to be replaced with Oppenheimer, the legend. From this point on, we don't really ever know what he thinks. Did he make a mistake? Does he have regrets? Would he do it the same way all over again? After this point in the movie, we see a man who is obsessed with cultivating his public image, who wants to appear moral and patriotic so the world can forgive him for dropping the bomb.
Did you think that if you let them tar and feather you, then the world would forgive you? It won't.
In the next shot, we see Oppenheimer far away through the point of view of the crowd. From here on, he becomes somewhat unknowable as a public figure. Everything he says next is carefully measured and has a double meaning.
The world will remember this day.
Will they remember the day because they won the war, or because this day unleashed atomic horror? Then the walls around him rattle as if an atomic bomb has been unleashed outside, and the shockwave is a moment away from ripping through the building. Oppenheimer stays the same in the frame though. The rattling of the walls outside of him are symbolic of what's actually happening inside of him. His next words are carefully chosen. A man who is flirting with regret.
It's too soon to determine what the results of the bombing are.
And then he looks at the faces of these people and he makes a decision. He chooses to double down.
But I'll bet the Japanese didn't like it.
He chooses patriotism. From this moment onwards, he will spend his entire life embracing the title of the father of the atomic bomb, and he will insist that the bomb saved lives. The people cheer, but the walls around him rattle more than ever, until the sound of the crowd stops and are replaced by the cries of his victims. He only hears his own breath. He's only aware of the tightness in his own chest. This scene is mimicking the after effect of the bomb, the terrible silence when all sound is sucked inward by the immediate explosion. He continues to address them.
I'm so proud. So proud of what you have accomplished.
But the silence makes it seem like his words are hollow and that he doesn't believe them. But again, he doubles down.
I just wish we had it in time to use against the Germans.
The Foley sound effects here only feature the movement of human beings. A camera flash becomes the flash of an atomic bomb. And this is showing how to Oppenheimer, who is a man who has traveled the world, there are no American lives or Japanese lives. There are just human lives, and he is haunted by his accomplishments. When he visualizes the crowd turning to dust, this is a visual way to show us that in this moment, and really for the rest of his life, Oppenheimer is alone. He walks through the crowd, accepting their cheers, and the way people laugh and cheer is almost inhuman, the way Nolan films it. He imagines stepping into the corpse of a person who's been burned to ash, showing us the dangerous, guilt-ridden path that he will now walk for the rest of his life. Much like Barbie, Oppenheimer is beginning a journey, and slowly his face disappears into shadow. He sees a couple making out, but he feels as distant from their joy as he feels from the burned-out corpse at his feet. He sees another couple outside crying, and finally a man vomiting like he has radiation poisoning. Like Barbie, Oppenheimer is seeing the spectrum of human emotions in this scene, but rather than creating a connection like Barbie did did, Oppenheimer severs that emotional connection to humanity. This is because Barbies are essentially about children creating a connection with their future adult selves, and by extension, creating a connection with the rest of the human race. But an atomic bomb is about severing connections. Atomic warfare draws lines between nations and ultimately destroys human connection, and by extension, the human race. So in both these scenes, both Barbie and Oppenheimer reach a kind of apotheosis. They both ascend to something more than they were. Barbie learns to be human, while Oppenheimer forfeits his humanity. And this is appropriate because each of these movies is about the idea of reinvention or reincarnation. Barbies are a reinvention of the idea of what a little girl can grow up to be. Before Barbie, dolls only taught girls to be mothers. After Barbie, a girl could grow up to be a woman. Just as Oppenheimer was about the reinvention of warfare. The movie's most famous quote, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," comes from the Bhagavad Gita, a text which is fundamental in the concept of reincarnation, or purging to start the world anew. So it's fitting that after Oppenheimer steps into this new world, the first thing he sees is a man outside purging. And both of these movies came along at the perfect time in our society, with the Me Too movement, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, or with the escalating war in Ukraine and other global tensions rising. These movies draw a lot of their power from real-world events that create anxiety in our daily lives. And yet, at their core, they are both about the power of ideas. The idea to heal and connect with people, or the idea to destroy. You can watch them together and fully embrace both sides of this theme, both sides of humanity, the pink and the darkness, and you can question how you fit into this beautiful, awful, simple, and complicated world. Well guys, that's just our thoughts on Barbie and Oppenheimer. Let me know what you thought of the movies down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.